all know everybody.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
We'll call this regularly scheduled commission meeting to order. It's Saturday, May the 20th at 9 o'clock a.m. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You'll probably notice a new face on the commission. Where? Right there.
Yeah, Roger!
We want to welcome Ms. Kim Smith-Casper to the commission and look forward to working with you. And it's not like we don't know you and haven't worked with you, so.
Thank you very much.
We want to, I was hoping that Mr. Locke would have been here, but he's not, and we wanted to thank him for his service to the commission and the train and the communities, and we wish him well, and it was sad to see him go.
Mark was reappointed.
Yes, and Mark has been reappointed by the governor of Colorado to a 3-year term, just in the last couple of weeks.
Yes, for which I'm very grateful.
And I'm still hanging on. Probably good for 4 more years, but we'll see. We're at New Mexico is at the convenience of the governor, where Colorado is not. They are appointed, so that's the difference.
And it states in the letter you get from the governor, you serve at the pleasure of the governor.
Yep.
Both states is the same letter, same type
No.
of letter?
It's
No.
an executive order from Colorado.
Oh,
And then you
okay.
get an actual letter from the governor of New Mexico and a letter from the Secretary of State with an oath that you have to sign and
the
send
two-
back with $3 for a recording fee.
The two states do it very differently.
Can I get a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Can I get a motion to approve the minutes from the February 23rd, 2023 regular commission meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Can I get a motion to approve the minutes from the April 26th, 2023 special commission meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Can I get a motion to approve the minutes from the April 30th, 2023 special commission meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
President's report.
Okay. So this is the spring 2023 President's Report, and I'm going to cover fiscal year 22-23. So this covers really the entire last fiscal year, and so it's a little longer than normal. Refinement of the management processes for Cumbres Toltec Operating LLC has taken a majority of executive leadership attention over the past year. We've been focused on improving and correcting some of the Commission's CTO governance issues that have been identified over the past 23 months. Policy Practices Manual for the CTS Commission has been updated to version 8 and will be voted on during this meeting. The key changes are on the role of the Commission as the Board of Directors for CTO and modifying the purchasing authority limits consistent with approved Commission resolutions. A new strategic plan for the railroad was developed over the winter. The plan lays out a 5-year vision for the railroad. The strategic plan was developed by CTO management team and submitted to the Commission for approval at the February Commission meeting. After approval of the February minutes, the new strategic plan will be posted on the Commission website. One issue identified during the strategic planning process was a lack of management development program within CTO. During the off-season, 1 day per month was dedicated to a different management development topic for the team. outside facilitator, or a teacher were brought in for the various topics. The railroad has a very young and diverse management team. Investment in the people responsible for providing a safe and enjoyable guest experience is an investment in the next generation, protecting the investments by the people of Colorado and New Mexico in the Cumbres Toltec Scenic Railroad. Recruiting and retaining staff to work for the railroad is a challenge in the post-pandemic world. We established 2 $5,000 scholarships with Trinidad State College in Alamosa to build a pipeline of skilled craftspersons for the railroad. One scholarship is for a person from the Colorado San Luis Valley, one for a student from New Mexico Chama Valley. The current staff and management team reflect the demographics of local communities. Diverse representation of staff has been an important issue for the 2 state legislative appropriation committees. Significant changes were made to the employee benefit package this year. Some changes were required due to changes in Colorado and New Mexico state employment laws. The primary change was separation of paid time off into separate annual leave and sick leave earned times. We were also able to raise the starting pay to $17 an hour, providing staff with at least a 9.7% increase as we begin the 2023 operating season. We also moved the simple IRA from Morgan Stanley in Denver to ADP after we moved our payroll system to ADP. The ADP IRA provides our employees with more investment options for their retirement funds, and an employee handbook has been created and reviewed by Employers Council. Distribution of that will begin next week. The drug and alcohol testing program, compliant with the DOT quality assurance requirements, has been implemented. A medical review officer now reviews all drug testing results before providing those to the railroad. The Commission and CTO worked with the various appropriation committees of both legislatures. The requested funding for the Commission operations, which covers property insurance for the railroad, was fully funded by both states. Capital funding from Colorado and New Mexico was funded as requested and returned to pre-pandemic levels. Special appropriation of $125,000 to design the structural repairs needed to the 2 stalls at the Chama Roundhouse was approved by New Mexico. Once the design is completed, we'll request funding to execute the repair work needed on this historic structure. Last year, Governor Polis proposed buying out the capital appropriation process with a single ARPA-funded appropriation. The long-term strategy adopted a few years ago created an expectation within the 2 states that the railroad would become self-sufficient with a 10-year window. The COVID pandemic upset those plans. The members of both legislatures requested an update on the progress towards self-sufficiency during recent sessions. Looking forward, the railroad will need to continue to focus on cost containment and revenue increases to ensure its continued survival. A new budgeting and accounting structure has been developed for CTO. The 2023 budget will be presented for approval during this meeting. The revised structure ensures we're compliant with the government cost accounting standards, a requirement for expending the $3 million of ARPA funding provided by New Mexico. A new voice-over IP phone system is currently being installed. This should save the railroad about 2/3 the cost of the previous phone system. During the past year, 2 new 3/4 ton 4x4 pickups were purchased through the state of Colorado Fleet Purchase Program. 1 half-ton pickup was purchased through the GSA auction. A 3/4 ton flatbed was purchased at auction for the track crew, and a 1-ton chassis was purchased through the auction for the brush truck skid that the village of Chama donated to the railroad. Several older vehicles will be retired. Track maintenance equipment has been upgraded with a new, to us, ballast regulator, a new tracked excavator, and a new backhoe. The excavator is equipped with a masticator for management of the vegetation along the right-of-way, also a rock breaker to address rock faults. The backhoe is equipped with a tamper attachment to speed up replacement of switch ties in the yards. During the summer of 2022, the Osier Dining Hall was put back into operation except for the kitchen after the September 22nd, 2021 bakery fire. A temporary kitchen was placed across the tracks to serve food for the railroad's guests for the 2022 operating season. All the new kitchen equipment has been ordered and received. The equipment is currently being installed in the rebuilt kitchen. New food serving tables have been ordered but have not yet shipped. And the total cost to recover the dining hall after the fire exceeded the insured value of the building of $1.7 million. The insurance company is now exploring whether to subrogate the claim against Toltec Gorge Catering for the fire. The Osier fire claim is the second very large claim against the railroad's property insurance policy. And the railroad's property insurance costs have now increased 51% of the result of this claim in the Lobato Trestle fire several years ago. A new 5-year bus contract has been negotiated with Mountain View. We'll have 3 buses during most of the operating season with an option to add a 4th bus during the fall color season. The daily cost is slightly less than last year, but the fuel adjustment surcharge is slightly higher. A new Antonito train storage building materials have all been received from the Clary Building Company. Delivery of the building was delayed due to shortages of sheet metal needed for the roof and the exterior. Construction of the track was completed before Christmas, and the building has begun to go up this month. The building's been delayed about 6 months from our original promised construction date. When completed, the building will house the historic wooden car set and 2 small locomotives. The Commission approved acquisition of the gift shop space adjoining the Commission and Friends properties in Antonito. A full assessment of work required to repair the building space and bring it into compliance with current ADA requirements will be completed this year. Commission also approved purchase of former Ed and Mike's Body Shop in Chama. This building is being upgraded so it can be used to maintain the expanded fire engine fleet. The rear of the building also provides a shop space to maintain motor cars based in Chama for fire patrol behind trains. It also gives us indoor space to maintain the motor cars. The building is also providing some additional storage space. We hired a tree trimming company from Taos to clear dead and damaged trees around the Chama yard. Several dead trees were removed, and the threat to power lines that were a threat to power lines or personal safety. Other trees between the north yard switch and the Chama River Bridge were trimmed to provide clearance for the train. The former Florence and Cripple Creek Combine number 60 that had been on the property for many years was sent to the Nevada County Narrow Gauge Railroad. The car was not owned by the Commission, but had been stored in Antonito. The NCNGR plans to restore the car over the next several years. We've had some interest in acquisition of the old standard gauge hopper cars sitting east of the coal tipple. We've asked the City of Colorado Springs for permission to dispose of the old tender cistern for 168. This is all work part of the effort to clean up the railroad property. The Wildland Fire Mitigation Plan was significantly revised in 2022. The plan is based on preventing a fire start by observing the probability of ignition of 1-hour fine fuels rather than a program to fight fires once started. The Durango and Silverton Narrow Gauge Railroad and the East Broadtop Railroad have both requested copies of our wildland fire management plan. The firefighting resources of the railroad have been strengthened with the addition of a brush truck in 22, an additional one in 2023. Fire patrol remains in operation behind each train. Last season we had 2 small fire starts. The oil-burning engine 489 dropped a piece of fire brick onto a tie and ignited the tie between the rails. Engine 463 left Antonito Terminal and dropped ashes on the ties due to an ashpan door not being securely closed. But there were no fire starts due to stacked cinders. Engine 488 had historically ignited line-side fires. Replacing the Cyclone front end with a master mechanic front end like the locomotive was equipped with new reduced the size of the cinders from the stack, significantly lowering the probability of ignition. And I've got a reference for anybody that wants to read it about how one calculates the probability of ignition. The Chama shop has been working on locomotives 463, 484, 488, and 489. The FRA annual inspections on the 4 locomotives have been completed. This was the 5th annual inspection for 488, so it also required inspection of the flexible stay bolts. To perform this inspection, the cab and all cab appliances were moved, the stay bolts were inspected, and the cab reinstalled. 489 has a lot of running gear work being performed this winter. All the brasses on the side and main rods are being replaced. The crank pins on number 2 and number 3 drivers required turning. The trailing truck is having a thrust plate replaced and is being trued up so it will track correctly under the locomotive. The cold grate actuators in the ash pan have been removed to allow a deeper fire pan to be installed for improved combustion of the oil in the firebox. In addition, the air damper door is being extended below the cab so combustion air is drawn from outside the cab rather than inside. The 489 will not be in operation on opening day, but should be available soon thereafter. The Antonito shop completed the FRA required 1472 service day inspection on locomotive 315 for the DRHS. The engine ran from Antonito to Lava on March 9 and 10 with a 3-car 78-ton train. The 315 is currently scheduled to lead the first train out of Antonito on May 27. Locomotive 168 moved into the shop after 315 was completed. The FRA inspection has been completed. The cracks in the fireman's side cylinder saddle have been repaired using a metal stitching method. The engineer's side cylinder saddle had more extensive cracking. There was a repair made by the DNRG before the engine was placed in Antlers Park. The DNRG had formed a half-inch plate to fit over the saddle to hold the saddle together. After we inspected the saddle with dye penetrant, we observed the crack had propagated to the rear of the saddle. As we removed the DNRG patch, we observed the crack had run from the front of the saddle to the rear through the 4 bolts holding the boiler to the saddle on the engineer's side. The section of the cylinder saddle fell off when we removed the Rio Grande patch. We used the same metal stitching method to repair the engineer's side. A plate was then formed to go over the repaired cylinder saddle and tie the smoke box back to the cylinder saddle. It's also noted that many stay bolts are showing excessive wastage, so we're developing a plan to replace the firebox stays during the 2023-2024 operating shop season. The locomotive made a test run with a train on May 16th. 168 is currently scheduled to operate from Antonito on May 28th. The 487 was towed dead and trained to Antonito by engine 484 on November 14th. The firebox had some visible spider cracking around a few stay bolts. Once the engine was in the shop, the grates and ash pan were removed. Magnetic particle and dye penetrant inspections were performed to determine the extent of the firebox cracking, and ultrasonic thickness measurements were made. The bottom 18 to 24 inches of the firebox were removed due to extensive cracking from the stays and significant thinning of the sheets. New lower corners, side sheets, door sheet, rear flue sheet were fabricated using the McCabe flanger and a set of dies that were made in Antonito. Morton Locomotive and Machine and the Antonito shop partnered to get the sheets fabricated. We used the dies in the flanger to make new firebox corners for the Durango-Silverton Railroad's 480 as well. New sheets are being welded into the 487's firebox. A patch is also being applied to the outer wrapper sheet on the engineer's side to address cracking around the blowdown valve. New rivets will be driven to attach the sheets to the mud ring, while full penetration welding is joining the new sheets to the old. Once all the firebox work is completed, a new oil burner and fire pan will be installed. A new riveted tender cistern has been completed, and the oil tank will be fitted into the rebuilt tender. The 487 is being converted to burn used lubricating oil. The same design as 489 was modified during the 2022-2023 winter season. Given the extensive firebox work and the tender rebuild required, we do not anticipate 487 being ready for opening day, but it should be in operation soon after 489 is operational. We have 4 locomotives available for operation today, plus DRH's 315. We will have 2 oil-burning engines available later in the season. Work on locomotive 492 has begun. This locomotive is not operated since 1966. New side rods, main rods, and valve gear have been ordered. Various appliances are being rebuilt or sourced. We recently had the whistle from 490 donated for 492. The locomotive will be pulled off the stub track, and work on the boiler and running gear should commence this summer. A contractor will be used to install flexible stay bolts in the firebox, similar to what the DNS did with 493. And based on the Form 4 analysis for the 2 sister engines, 491 and 493, there may need to be some additional work on the internal boiler braces to bring the engine into full compliance with 49 CFR 230. The Antonito shop completed painting all 23 passenger cars used on trains 215 and 216. They've all received new lettering as well. This was a huge effort by the Antonito shop. They also completed the new parlor car, and it'll be added to the June 3rd train out of Antonito. And we have something special planned for the rollout of the new parlor car. The 3 wooden cars of the historic fleet have received their annual inspections. As everyone is aware, the last normal season for the railroad was 2019. In 2020, we all went through COVID pandemic shutdowns, and the restrictions followed through into 2021. In 2022, the large wildland fires in New Mexico absorbed all the firefighting resources in the southwest United States. Carson National Forest shut down forest access. In discussions with Rio Grande National Forest, Carson National Forest, Colorado, and New Mexico forestry staff, the Commission delayed opening day until July 1. We estimate that decision cost the railroad about $730,000 in lost revenue. The track capital program continued throughout 2022-23. The FRA mandated bridge inspections confirmed all these structures are safe for continued operation. The water tank supports were all inspected. A few supports were identified that need to be replaced. Track materials, ballast, and ties have been procured. Additional track maintenance equipment has been acquired, so this program can be hopefully accelerated this year. When we set the 2023 operating schedule, the management team decided to focus on building ridership on the 2 daily trains, since increasing ridership on these 2 trains has the greatest impact on the surrounding communities. Ridership bookings for the 2023 operating season are running well ahead of the 2019 season. Total ridership is currently 11% ahead of 2019, 38% ahead of 2019 revenue. Booked seats on trains 215 and 216 are 21% ahead of 2019 as of May 18. Our new 5-year strategic plan sets a long-term goal to sell 25% of the available seats on the 2 regular trains before the season begins. As of May 18th, we'd sold 20% of the seats for the season. Total ticket sales to date from July 1, 2022 through June 30, 2023 are currently running at 29,152, and that's going up every day as we sell more seats in June. All the ticket sales for this coming season up till July 1 are booked as deferred revenue in this fiscal year. My report.
Any questions?
Maybe just recap how many locomotives we'll have available for opening day.
So opening day, we have 168, 463, 484, and 488 all ready to go. All of them have been test run. All have been fired. We also have DRHS's 315. We have an agreement with the DRHS to be able to use 315 if we need to in emergency situations. And we renegotiated the contract. Actually, Marvin renegotiated the contract with Tom Artsberger. And I think it's an advantage to both organizations. So thank you, Marvin. So we actually have 5 operable steam engines today.
That's wonderful. Congratulations. That's a gigantic accomplishment. Plus, if you look around and see the cars and how nice they look. So it was 23 cars, is that?
23 cars.
That's a major effort.
And 489, they're finishing the machining of the new bronze bushings for the side rods and main rods. It should be done sometime in July. So we'll have 6 engines at that point.
Well, congratulations to the teams. They really did a spectacular job. So, thank you.
Avery and the Chama shop have done an amazing amount of work this winter, and so has the guys over in the Antonito shop to get both small engines through. 168 had so many problems that we had to address that it was a major accomplishment, and have to thank both Max Casillas and Stephen Butler and Jocelyn Comstock for all the work they did on those engines.
Yeah.
Yeah, tell the teams we appreciate it.
Absolutely.
How's snow removal going?
The railroad is open from one end to the other. Thank you, Marvin. And Marvin spent a lot of time on a snowblower. But it's open from one end to the other. And we should be running trains next week.
And there's no shortage of snow up there still.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you, Scott.
Can I ask a question? When we get to the regular opening, will the dining room and kitchen in Osier be done, or will you still produce the food in a trailer for a while?
So the plan is that we will run an employee special June 1, where we're going to bring all the employees from Antonito across the railroad. Some people haven't ridden the train, so we're going to fix that. They will all then be the guinea pigs for the kitchen in Osier with all the new equipment. And on June 3rd, the public gets to eat in the kitchen, or in the dining hall, and the food will be prepared up there.
If we have any employees left.
That's not funny.
I would also like to comment, I would like to thank everybody involved with the progress made in the shop over the winter. I know there was a lot to do, and I realize that the 489 and 487 will not yet be done, but I'm glad to see that progress has been made on the rest of it and on those as well, so
Yeah.
I think that's good. The ridership report, reservation report, now is that, when compared to 2019, is that on comparable days
Mhm.
or overall?
No, it's on comparable days.
Comparable days.
So as of the May 18th, those numbers are as of May 18th, when I pulled the numbers, as I was writing this. So sales up to that date. Now, we've got some more sales in the last 2 days, so.
You know, what I was getting at, I guess, is in 19, it was a 7-day-a-week season.
Mhm.
So is this based on total numbers then? In other
So,
words, doing more in 6 than was done in 7?
yes, we are doing more, we have more riders booked in a 6-day season than we did in a 7-day season in 19.
All right.
So
Thank you.
lower costs, more riders, which should translate into more people per train.
Which is really encouraging. Now, I think all of us are a little concerned about the economy, but the economy keeps chugging along, so
Yeah.
we're keeping our fingers crossed. The longer, my experience is the longer you can go without a panic, people firm up their vacation plans, and even if things turn really ugly on July 1st, it might affect the fall a little bit, but July and August are probably gonna be okay.
We've got some days this fall that the trains are approaching sold out before we've turned a wheel this year.
Okay.
Scott, related to that, I mean, that answers part of my thought, but, for those days, right, you're pre-selling tickets now, booking, filling those trains up. What is your expectation that that's gonna do to sales later in the year? If those trains are full, right?
We have the ability to, because we have so many locomotives available, and because we're working a 6-day schedule, we have some flexibility in the hours people work under the hours of service laws, as well as enough locomotives that we can add double headers out of here. Last year, we also did something where we started running double buses out of here and getting people to Antonito and filling up the Antonito trains coming back this way. So we increased capacity last year coming out of Antonito by running a double bus in the morning out of here. We can add additional cars, and we've actually already added the new parlor car on several trains for this coming year. So we'll run 2 parlor cars on one train, which is gonna require us to double head on those days out of here.
So you're just gonna increase capacity?
We're gonna increase capacity as needed.
One last question. Is it still the plan to be a 6-day season in the fall, or is that going to be a 7-day season?
Right now, it's a 6-day season. We have the option that if sales look incredible, we can come back and potentially, depending on hours of service that we gotta watch, be able to add a 7th. But right now, John, it looks like we'll probably be careful, really careful on the hours of service commitments.
Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. And good question, thanks for the questions. Marvin?
Well, we'll start off first with the OSHA progress. On the OSHA progress, pretty much all we need to do is get the plumbing done, and that kitchen should be ready to go. Talking to the electrician last night, I gave him a call, and he told me that all the electrical work up there roughly is about 90% done. He's gonna have to make one more trip up there just to make sure that when they turn everything on, everything's gonna be going full service. And then on the road, we got the road cleared out last Friday, and It's clear snow. It's still closed. The Forest Service still has the gates locked. We can use the road for our railroad use for right now. That's, so in order to go in, so, we have to keep real close watch on that so that we don't wanna get a lot of traffic in there. We don't wanna rut out of the road. That's one thing that we've been warned on. And, so we'll try to stay on top of that. And as our contractors go in, we'll try to work with them so that they go in on dry days. This weather's raising a lot of heck with us right now. But, I don't really see a problem on the OSHA building for opening day. I think we'll be okay. We got several, small projects that are still gonna go on up there. And, all those small projects should be accomplished by the 3rd of June. You know, talking to the contractors, they all have confidence, they'll all have it all done. So, we're there on the tracks. We got the tracks open all the way through, everything's clean. The only thing is we got it blocked with the diesel. We broke an axle in the diesel, milepost 309. So we're stuck with the diesel at milepost 307.5, and we intend to get that off the tracks on Monday afternoon. So we'll clear that out and we'll work on that. On Tuesday, we intend to take an engine across to Anito. We're looking at moving equipment back this way on Wednesday. Try to get a little ahead on being set up for Saturday morning over here, you know, and at the same time be set up over there. We'll also see what the track beds are gonna do when we put a little bit of weight on them. You know, it's very wet, so we'll see what that's gonna do. But that all looks good so far. You know, we're not having a problem there. Like Scott said, the crews did a fantastic job. I mean, shop guys over here, shop guys over there, the work they accomplished is unbelievable. They hit it hard, and they got a lot of stuff done, you know, and as of right now, the train consist, they were trying to finish the last 3 cars cleaned up. The cleaning crew over there started hitting cleaning cars and all that, and they got the cars cleaned, ready to come back this way. So there's done. And for just having 2 people on that, that's a heck of an accomplishment what they've been doing, you know, in a week. You know, but we're trying to just, like I said, trying to have everything ready. We're going to put on the show on Saturday. That's the whole thing. We're going to be ready. You know, it's. Other than that, we got some projects that we're going through. We're trying to work a paint booth addition to the Anteater shop, and we're waiting to see how the numbers come out for all that, and see where we get as far as we go there. Our historical shed is on hold they're still waiting on a couple things, but hopefully that'll get taken care of and we can start getting some stuff out of the way. Once our historical shed does get put up, we will be able to clean up a lot of the yard in Anteater. Right now, we just don't have a place to put stuff. And I mean, we've got everything cluttered, just so that we can get around, you know. So that's where we're at on that. You know, Zell, a big car F, is coming along. He's starting to get windows up and all that. So that's going to come. That's starting to show that the car's getting put together. Mm-hmm. It's it's starting to look good. So that's a project that, for the few people that are working on it, it's made a lot of progress also. You know, on what it's doing. So that's coming along, and I'm happy to say that our parlor car's done. We're waiting on just the lamps, and hopefully they're supposed to be here this week.
You're supposed to be here this week.
And once we get the lamps on, and that'll go on, you know, and I welcome all you guys to walk in there, take a look at it. I myself, I think, very nice job.
It's beautiful.
You know,
Really did a great job.
We worked pretty hard on the interior, and then talked with Mark a little bit at first, and then Scott and I got together and started looking at stuff. We went ahead and put steel siding on the car, and it's made that car look a lot different, a lot better. So, you know, it's something to think about, that maybe that's our future, and make it look better for what we're doing.
Yep.
But, as we go on, you know. So that's what I got.
Questions?
Well, again, please pass on our greatest appreciation, because you just had a great off-season getting things done on both sides.
And the last thing that I've got is Monday morning at 8 o'clock, we have our crews, and they'll be in there at 8 o'clock in Anito shop for a rules class, safety training, and that'll be going on through most of the day. So we'll have them over there Monday morning. So that's where I intend to have everybody. So get everybody up to speed so we can get going.
Good.
Okay.
Anything else? Thanks, Marvin.
Thank you.
Tell the crews thanks. Count's my favorite CFO. Actually, the only CFO I know, but
Good morning, everyone. So we are done with the audit, and we'll have our presentation today. So Josh Trujillo will present the audit. But winter projects are going to slowly come to stand, and operations will begin. So we'll start to see those reflect on the financials. The winter months have been pretty busy in my department. So I have filled 2 positions. So I have a new accounts payable clerk, and I also have hired a project manager organizer. So we will have this person manage all of the capital billing to the states of Colorado and New Mexico. So this week we got together with Misty, myself, Scott, Tomas, Ed in one room, and we discussed how we will proceed with the budget. So we do have a new layout of the budget, and this is a big step for the Cumbres and Toltec. That will be going out too. So the audit has been finalized, and it's been submitted to Colorado, and it's been approved by New Mexico. So we are prepping for the budget, or for the audit, next fiscal year audit. So we want to make sure that our audit is completed by November 1st. So we have taken preventative measures to make sure that does happen. The payroll transition has been pretty smooth. So we are really proud of that. Roseanne has helped a lot with that. I'm just going to give a quick recap of each fund. So HPA for this time of year is pretty quiet. That's usual. We'll start to see the historic preservation pass through HPA as we start generating ticket revenue. Commission. So we are expected to receive our commission general fund support from Colorado, and as soon for fiscal year 23 or 22, I'm sorry, or 23, yes. And as soon as July 1st hits, we can also invoice Colorado for that support for fiscal year 24. We are under, but our expenses are pretty good for the year-to-date totals, but I'll jump into capital. So like Marvin and Scott have said, capital is pretty busy. We see a lot of the expenditures for passenger car painting, PayCarF, locomotive rehab, and we do have track crew back on board. So we do see a lot of the expenditures going through capital for those. CTO, at the end of April, we're starting to pick up on operating expenditures, so we'll see those within CTO. Our expenses for the month of April are under budget, so that's good for CTO, because if we recall at around this time last year, we had a lot of expenses in CTO and commission that we are trying to complete with the fire up at Osier. So we will start to see the ticket revenue increase as we start running excursions, and we do see an increase in our utilities from prior year. So that's one of our biggest increases. But that's pretty much it for me. If there's any questions, concerns,
I don't think so. Just thank you. I know it's been
yes.
a challenge being short-staffed, and congratulations for getting a couple more people in there.
I'd like to commend you as well, Lacey. I know you've had a rough 6 months, but you've survived, and I'm very proud of you. So keep up the good work.
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you guys.
One of Alicia's new employees is Stephanie Gray, which you guys might remember. She'll be working part-time for us, so that's great. Yes, sir?
Can I ask one question that I actually should have asked when Scott gave his report? On the appropriations, is there still a tail on how many years we've got to expend all that funding?
Yes.
Oh, good.
Almost all of them have come with a 3-year window.
Yeah, okay.
It requires some special language in New Mexico. Colorado's been appropriated so that we don't have that issue. And we are back into the 3-year budget cycle for Colorado. So next year will be the last year of the 3-year cycle. The following year we'll have to go re-baseline everything.
Good.
Mark and I were able to push that last year and get us back into the 3-year appropriation process.
That's good. Thank you.
Local affairs? Stuck with it one more time.
One more time. Well, in a previous life, Scott, Abby, and I have spent a lot of time going around visiting with the local businesses in Trauma. I think we got to everybody except those that were closed. A lot of them have reopened. Well, Abby and Scott will try to get to those this week, as well as Antonino. Everybody's very excited. People are busy. I've had a couple of the RV parks tell me that they're sold out for the summer. A lot of family reunions and weddings and things like that. So hopefully Trauma will get its water situation fixed sooner rather than later, and we can move forward and have a good season.
And just a comment on the water season. So far, and I'm crossing my fingers, the restaurants and the motels and everyone is dealing with it very well. So there's no big glitch like there was last year. And again, I'm keeping my fingers crossed. So
And
for those who are thinking about coming down, by all means come down, because it's seamless.
one of the things that, as we visited people in Chama, we highlighted was the Memorial Day weekend. We deliberately set up the short trains from Chama to Cumbres and back, starting after lunch, to try to bring more people into the community for lunch, and then the trains will get back so that many people will be around for dinner. The idea was to try and kick off and build as much revenue locally as we possibly could for the restaurants and other eating venues. We watched last year, those trains were 25% small kids. And that was a very good boost for long-term ridership, be getting those people exposed to those trains. So we did that very deliberately to try to build the restaurant volume in Chama itself to kick the season off.
Mark, I skipped 10 since we didn't have anybody to report. Do you have anything to report on marketing?
And I'm sure others can fill in more than I, but I think we can see that the marketing has been very successful so far, with our reservations being up as much as they are. And so I think Abby's just done a terrific job on that side of it. I think the decision to start out the advertising a month earlier has certainly paid off as well. I know from experience elsewhere that if people make a reservation, they're much more likely to show up than those who wait until the last minute, because when they wait till the last minute, it depends on weather or other things that come up. So kudos to marketing.
You're doing an excellent job. Capital projects?
I'll do a quick summary of the things that are included in the budget for this coming year. I'm going to highlight the things that are targeted with the New Mexico ARPA money. We will not spend all $3 million this year. We're going to target spending about half of it. But we broke the overall track maintenance program into track upgrades and then ongoing track maintenance. Because if we end up having to move into a self-sufficient model, we need to understand what the ongoing maintenance that CTO will eventually have to absorb needs to be. And so we budgeted it in 2 buckets, one for upgrades and one for maintenance. So we've got about a little over $500,000 targeted for the track upgrade program out of ARPA. The ballast tamper is getting tired. So as part of the ARPA money, we've targeted a full rebuild of that by the manufacturer this fall, after we're through using it this season. With running the small engines out of Antonito, we have, for the last few years, stopped at a water car parked at Lava and used a pump to pump up. So instead of pumping water out of the tank car into the tender, what we want to do is rehabilitate the tank itself and pump water into the tank so we can stop for 3 or 4 minutes instead of 15. So part of the plan is get a contract out there for the lava tank rehabilitation this summer. The Osier water system fell under a new set of rules and regulations. And it is, and Ed, you may have to jump in, surface modified, groundwater, the influence of surface water, which brought in a whole new set of regulations. So over this winter, we built a water treatment plant in a building that's all steel, and it will get located up there to replace the current water treatment program and facility, and it will provide a compliant water treatment program for Osier. And then for 492, we're using ARPA money, plus we're matching that with private donations. We've got about $600,000 in private donations committed towards that, and so we're going to match it with ARPA money. And the last one I want to comment on is New Mexico appropriated $125,000 for the design work necessary to look at the structural failures that are occurring in the roof of the old roundhouse, the historic 2 stalls of the roundhouse. So we'll get an engineering firm in and design the replacement structures so we don't have a bunch of sistered beams and other things that are beginning to fail up there. And we've got a couple of companies that do post and beam construction lined up to then help with the fabrication of the replacement components for that roof structure. But we need some engineering work because as I got familiar with on the Silverton Northern engine house redo, a lot of the designers back in the 1880s assumed that the heat from inside the building would melt the snow in the winter. And we don't do that anymore. We don't heat that building year round. So we don't have that melting it. So we had to strengthen the roof structure at Silverton Northern engine house. We'll have to strengthen the roof structure on the Chalmers structure. So we need an engineering design firm to help with that. New Mexico has said that once we get the design work done and full cost estimate, come back to them and they will help fund it. So that's a good thing. Protect that historic building. That's my summary on capital stuff.
Questions?
No, thank you.
I have one question. Can we talk about the pavilion at Cumbres and what plans there are
Well-
regarding its future?
Ed and I have snowshoed in. The snow was holding it up, so neither one of us were willing to go under the roof. We do not know the extent of the damage. We do know that the posts on both sides all fractured. The roof has shifted about 10 feet to the west as it is falling down, and it is sitting on the snowbank, and the snowbank is going away. John, we don't have an idea how extensive the damage is. We know that all of the walls have basically collapsed, that the kitchen section is the only part that hasn't. Once we can get into it and actually assess what it is, then we can build a plan for how to fix it. But as Ed and I looked at the design drawings, designed for 100 pound per square foot snow loading. Colorado requires for that location 232 pounds per square foot. So the Colorado design code is over twice as much as what the building was designed to support. So, I mean, at one point this winter, you couldn't see it at all because it was just a little bump in the snow. So the snow crushed it. Some of us think maybe the wind had aided that crushing, but whatever, we'll figure it out and then figure out how to put something up there again.
Did the little shed that the generator lives in
It's
come
fine.
through okay?
It's fine.
Which suggests that a 12-12 pitch may be an appropriate design.
Well, maybe a higher pitch, but certainly a lot more structure holding up the pitched roof.
Yeah.
It may end up having to be a steel structure rather than a wood structure.
The storage tracks, all that, is that just on hold for, I mean, the tracks down below?
Oh, down here?
Yeah, here, and then I've heard rumors about stuff going on in Antonito as well.
One of the things that the purchase of Sandra Gray's old property opens up some possibilities for discussions in the future on what we do with part of that property. The storage buildings for down here, I got a requote on that structure, those two structures. They have more than doubled in price from the initial proposal. So each one of those buildings is now well in excess of $500,000.
So, on hold.
So we have acquired the track materials, and John Matthews has been getting the switches and things necessary, and those have been procured. We'll figure out at some point how to squeeze that into the HPA budget.
Tim? Thank you.
Thank you.
And then give you guys a copy of our projects as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, there you go. Even in color.
Okay. Well, as with the opening of the railroad season, our work session season kicks off this next Monday, the 22nd. Session A, and then the following week, Session B. Those will be in Antonito, so I think we've got in the neighborhood of mid-20s for those sessions. We have been really trying to solicit members for future work sessions, and I think it's starting to work because we're starting to fill out more for sessions C and D, which would be in Chama, but what happens is, as I tell you over and over with our demographics, you know, it's getting harder and harder, but I think we're succeeding at starting to fill these out a little bit more. You know, when I first got here, we would hit 150, 160 people for C, and it was almost like, oh, we got to cut them. We don't have enough materials, or we don't have enough stuff to do for you folks. So now it's just the opposite, and so we got to continue to work on that. But anyway, we'll be off and running. You'll see some of the projects we're undertaking there with the what I handed out with the project schedule. Friday, June 23rd, we'll be having a member train ride and dinner, which was going to be up at Cumbres, but obviously not now. So Scott and I are working on something with Outlaw Barbecue that maybe we'll try and eat there beforehand, and then take a train ride up to Cumbres and back. So that'll be our plan B, which again Scott and I are pulling together. We have a new educational committee. They're off and running. We've got booklets being printed up. This was something that way back Nan Clark, Linda Smith had done. So we got 5,000 booklets being done up. We got junior engineer patches, and we have pencils we're giving out to kids. So Rich had something. Where's Rich? I got it. Oh, there. Yeah, I'm gonna give you pencils too, in addition to the trip maps. I could put some pictures in there, as you'll see, of the continued work up in Colorado Springs on the express bag car. See Craig McMullen there, our master wood carver, or wood guy, carpenter. So they're hard at tearing that car down and having at it. So another long project, but we're getting at it. And then down the road here, of course, we've got the Moonlight Wine Train, which is July 29th. So we'll be working with Scott and the staff on that. And then fast forward to end of August, the pre-National Narrow Gauge Convention charters are full, 28th and 29th. In fact, I'm kind of doing like the airlines. I'm overbooking it a little bit, but it's not for a lack of seats. It's we try and get people on and off for photo run-bys. So I've drifted a little over our number, but sometimes we have cancellations. So anyway, that's kind of the year. We do have trip maps, 10,000 more trip maps printed up, so I'm going to give Rich some additional boxes to start the season, so the docents will be off and running. And so I think that's about all I have to say at the moment. So appreciate your support, as always.
Thank you. I'm always amazed at what a spectacular effort the Friends make, because there's so much organization that goes into this, so many hours volunteered, and we are just so appreciative because, as we've all said many times, this railroad would not be what it is without the Friends. So thank you.
Well,
much.
during the summer, we feel like a small construction company. You know, it's I see them checks for $10,000 for more lumber going out, and there's a lot of purchase orders. So we basically become like I say, a small construction company with everything we're doing. A lot of wood, a lot of paint, a lot of not as much steel, but still paint and wood.
I was looking, I talked to John Ames, a few weeks ago, and I've always been pestering for how many hours he invests during the winter, right? And like Todd Atkins and the other guys. It ends up being over four full-time equivalents during the winter. Like,
Yeah.
So, I mean, think about it if you had to pay for that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a lot of
It's-
time invested. So anyway, but thank you, appreciate
Tim,
everything.
I have a question. I was just curious as to how you're gonna disseminate the educational, is that gonna go out to schools specifically? Do you have a
It's
week-long?
kind of a combination. We want to hit kids on the train, but then the gals want to work on both the Chama Valley area and San Luis Valley. And so, yeah, kind of like Nan did when
Right.
she was here.
Okay.
So, yeah, but we want to hit both the train, but then also the school districts.
Okay, well, let me know if you need help with the school districts, because you're probably gonna have to go before the school board
Yeah,
at some
Okay.
point in time.
okay.
I'm
Yeah.
happy to help with that if I can.
Appreciate that, Kim.
Of course.
Tim, once upon a time, many years ago, you figured out how many volunteer hours went into a summer? If somebody could throw that together again for me, for
We keep,
us?
yeah, we keep track of it. I mean, it's in the neighborhood of 25,000 man-hours, so, we'll get you some numbers and,
Yeah, because I get asked that quite often, and, you know, I just don't remember what those figures were.
and then you can put a hourly rate, you know, there's a way you can look that up per state, and it's
Right.
usually in that $20 to $23 an hour.
Mhm.
So just take that and equate it, and it's worth a lot when you look at it from that perspective.
It's worth a lot, yes, it is.
That was a specific question David Abbey asked during our budget hearing in Santa Fe.
Yeah, and I can give you those, but that's the bulk, that's the rough,
Right.
you know, 25,000 plus, and then I'll have to go back and look at the labor rate they calculate, but it's what, over, you know, $500,000 and plus the materials.
Right.
And so, I did, I wanna mention again, Scott, that we've got that 100,000. All you gotta do is ask that, for the 492. So, anyway, that's kind of a pass-through, we'll just,
Tim, the winter work, the planning work too, on top of the 25,000 hours of work.
Exactly.
That additional, 6,000, 8,000 hours every winter.
yeah, that's not even taken into account when you think of the,
A project manager now in the world I live in,
planning.
they're billing $240 an hour, so.
Yeah.
the planning, and then also Rich's docents as well. You know, I'm not figuring the docents' time on the train, so
Wow.
that would be
Yeah.
on top of that,
So-
so.
Last season, when the water situation shut down the Chama work sessions, the work on the sand house got disrupted significantly. And so we worked with John to try to jumpstart that with a bunch of the excavation and concrete work. And we'll manage that so that when the volunteers get here this summer, they can actually pick up where they were planning to pick up last year and get that project finished as quickly as possible. So we're collaborating together to try and move that one along.
Thanks, Tim, and thanks to all your people too, so I really appreciate them. New business, presentation of the FY 22 audit, Dr. Trujillo.
I'm gonna bring that up for you and me.
Josh and Misty, I think we're ready for you. Did you want this? Give me some. Oh, they can't hear me. Where's my millennials when I need them? Right.
There's sharing his wife.
Misty says she can't hear me. Oh, it's right there, Donna. Thank you.
I can hear you now. Sweet. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am, sorry, I had to get my millennial to help me with the audio.
I think Josh is on as well. Josh, can you hear us?
Yeah.
Yes, I can.
Do I need to let you in, Scott? Okay, we're gonna try to set this up where we have a second screen that the audience can see as well. So give us just a second.
There's Misty. Let's see if we can get this. Can you see it over there?
It's a beautiful photo of the train.
Yeah, yeah.
On a beautiful railroad.
It may not work, so we'll see.
Millennial help.
There we go.
There we go.
There you are.
Go ahead. Have him go ahead.
Okay, Josh, we're ready for you.
All right, hold on. All right, well, hopefully everybody can see the screen here.
Yes.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to present the results of the fiscal year 2022 audit. I know it's a little bit later than probably everybody expected, but just a little background on the timeline. We started the audit pretty much back in October of 2022. Obviously ran into some issues with certain portions of invoicing and other areas that needed to be fully reconciled. And from that time through pretty much March of 2023, those items were corrected, and we issued the report to the Office of the State Auditor in April. And I think it was just last week the State Auditor finished their review of the report, released it, and as of today, that report is available online from the State Auditor's Office website. So that report is public information, and we're here today to present the actual results of the audit. So I have here a copy of a PowerPoint presentation that will just walk you through some of the results in the fiscal year 2022 audit. And here on this first slide is really just our responsibility as the Commission's auditors. Now, really try to break down the audit into these three phases. And really the primary responsibility is to provide an opinion on whether the Commission's financial statements are materially correct. Now, we audit the Commission both at kind of an overall level, which includes, the general fund, the capital fund, CTO, and HPA. But then we also audit each of those funds individually also. So really, in a sense, we give 5 opinions, one on each of those different funds of the Commission, and then on the Commission as a whole. Now, in our reports, we provide reasonable but not absolute assurance. We don't audit every single transaction that flows through each of those funds, financial statements, its bank account, and whatnot. But really, we perform what's called a risk-based audit, which is where we work to identify risks that could impact the Commission and each of those individual funds. And once we identify those risks, we design procedures that are responsive to those risks. Now, the second part of the audit is to obtain an understanding of your internal controls, really to help us plan the audit, but we don't provide an opinion on your internal controls. However, if we do identify any weaknesses in your internal controls, either in how they're designed or how they're being implemented, we would communicate that to you. And then third, we also perform testing on your compliance with certain state statutes that apply to the Commission. So we look at the New Mexico and Colorado statutes that apply to the Commission, and we design procedures that test compliance with those state statutes. So really those 3 areas, auditing the financial statements, obtaining an understanding of your internal controls, and then testing compliance with these state statutes really summarize the 3 parts of the audit. And really the overall audit results are shown here on this slide, and they correspond to those 3 parts of the audit. Now, as it relates to the audit of the financial statements, we issued an unmodified or a clean opinion ultimately on the Commission's financial statements. And it's really the highest level of assurance that we can provide as auditors. Now, what that means is that at the conclusion of our audit, we feel that the financial statements of the commission, both at each of those individual fund levels, as well as for the commission as a whole, are materially correct. Now, it doesn't mean that there were no findings as part of the audit. It doesn't mean that there were no adjustments or corrections made as part of the audit, but it just means that we feel the financial statements are materially correct. The second part of the audit, which relates to internal control, I mentioned we don't give an opinion on your internal controls, but if we identify weaknesses, we would communicate those to you. Now, we did identify 2 material weaknesses as part of the audit, as well as 1 significant deficiency. Now, material weakness is really that highest level or most severe type of deficiency we can report as part of an audit. And a significant deficiency is much less severe, but still something that should be reported to the Board of Commissioners ultimately. And then related to our testing of compliance with state statutes, we did have 1 non-compliance finding reported. And there were 2 non-compliance findings from the fiscal year 2021 audit that were resolved as part of the 2022 fiscal year. Now, you'll notice some page numbers throughout this presentation. If you want to see the details supporting any of this information, you can go to those pages in your financial statements and they'll provide more information. Now, I mentioned the 4 findings that were reported as part of the fiscal year 2022 audit, and they are summarized here on this slide. Again, if you look at the page numbers in your report, you can see the more detailed information on each of these findings. Now, the 2 material weakness findings that were reported relate to account reconciliations on page 50 and the appropriation invoicing process on page 51. Both of these really relate to the adjustments and corrections that were made during the fiscal year 2022 audit. Again, we started our audit in October, and really from that date through March, April 2023, there was a lot of back and forth on balances in certain accounts and making adjustments to certain accounts. And a lot of those corrections were actually caused by the appropriations that were being invoiced or not being invoiced. And really these 2 findings relate to that entire process. Now, our recommendations in both of these areas, or really in the first area, is just to implement a monthly and annual reconciliation process. And then on the second part, just develop policies and procedures specific to tracking, invoicing, and collecting on the available appropriations that are maintained by the commission each year. There was also a significant deficiency on page 52, which relates to the use of purchase orders. Now, your policies and procedures do require the use of purchase orders for most purchases, but there were some purchases that we tested this year that didn't comply with those policies and procedures. I know one thing that I believe you all are discussing today are some of the changes to your policies and procedures, which probably relates to the use of purchase orders and other things. But really, our recommendation here in this area is to follow those policies or update your policies to make sure that you are specifying when purchase orders are required and then ultimately implement those policies. And then the only non-compliance finding we had for this year related to submission of the audit report to the state of New Mexico past the November 1st audit deadline. Each year you are required to submit the audit to the Office of the State Auditor by November 1st. This year obviously it was submitted at the end of April, so that necessitated a late audit report finding this year. I mentioned that there were 2 findings from fiscal year 2021 that were resolved as part of the fiscal year 2022 audit, and they are shown here. One of them related to compliance with these local government budget compliance rules. In 2021, both the general fund and CTO overextended their budgets, and those were resolved in fiscal year 2022. And then last year, related to the Public Money Act, you have to deposit amounts received within 24 hours of receiving those funds. Last year, there was one issue that we detected as part of the audit. This year, we didn't have any issues with those deposits being made timely. So that was also shown as resolved this year. So with that being said, the rest of this presentation then will walk you through some of the numbers in the financial statements, and we put these in graphs to provide some context with the previous 3 years. You'll notice here in blue is the fiscal year 2022 information, and off to the far left you see the total assets of the commission. Now this includes both the commission's general fund as well as the capital fund, CTO, and HPA. And you'll see the total assets increased by about $6 million in fiscal year 2022. Now, when you look at your liabilities, they also increased by about $3 million. And because your assets increased by so much more than your liabilities, your net position off to the far right, which is really the difference between your assets and your liabilities, increased by about $3.5 million. Now, when you take your total assets and you break them down into your different types of assets, they're shown here on this slide. Now, your capital assets off to the far right are the most significant asset of the commission. And during fiscal year 2022, you see that pretty sizable jump in your capital asset balances. Now, you had new asset purchases of about 3.9, almost $4 million during fiscal year 2022. And most of that was track improvements, locomotive improvements, car improvements. But those $4 million of improvements were offset by the depreciation of your assets during the year. Off to the far left, you have your cash and investments, and you see your cash and investments actually did increase by about $2.2 million. Now, you'll see each of the last 3 years there has been a drop in your cash and investments. But in fiscal year 2022, you saw a pretty sizable jump. It was caused by a few things. One, you received about $1.7 million in insurance proceeds from the Osier fire that occurred during the year. Those insurance proceeds were received toward the end of fiscal year 2022. You also received those employee retention credits of about $300,000 during the year. And then you also received your fiscal year 2023 special appropriation from the state of New Mexico right at the end of 2022. And that amounted to $3 million that was included in your cash at the end of the year. So those three really made up the big increase in your cash and investments. Otherwise, you also have receivables here on this slide of about $3.3 million. And again, you'll notice that increase or that balance is a lot larger than it has been the last several years. That $3.3 million is pretty much split between the state of Colorado as well as the state of New Mexico, and it's really just amounts owed to the commission from its outstanding appropriations or its outstanding invoices on those appropriations. Your liabilities are shown here on this slide, and your largest liability at the end of 2022 is called unearned revenue. That's really made up of any unspent appropriations, which we mentioned you received that fiscal year 2023 appropriation right before the end of the year. And that's really the cause for your large increase in unearned revenue. As long as you spend down those appropriations on allowable activities, that unearned revenue goes away. Also included in that unearned revenue are prepaid classes as well as prepaid ticket sales. Those are included and really make up the balances in previous years. But again, that big increase was because of that appropriation being received prior to the end of the fiscal year. You also have payables and payroll liabilities here to the far left. You'll see a big jump in that payables and payroll liability balance. Most of that is because of a large invoice that was owed to ServPro at the end of the year, which really amounted to almost $1 million. And that was paid after the end of the year, but that made up the big jump from last year. And then you also see your PPP loan, which was recorded under CTO You issued one PPP loan in 2020, another one in 2021, and in fiscal year 2022, both of those loans were forgiven. And because of that, you see that PPP loan balance drop to zero at the end of 2022. Now, when you look at your net position, which you can also think of as your equity or your net worth at the end of the year, it's shown here on this slide. Now, your net position is broken down between the portion of your net position invested in capital assets, as well as any unrestricted net position. Now, the portion of your net position invested in capital assets is separated because all those assets do contribute to your net worth or your net position. They're not available for future spending unless you were to actually sell off or dispose of those capital assets. So that portion of your net position isn't really spendable unless you sold off those assets. And that amounted to about $18.3 million. Now, if you want to think of the purely unrestricted or the reserve of the commission at the end of each year, that's shown in that unrestricted net position, which at the end of 2022 amounted to about $2.2 million and is the largest it's been in the last 4 years. Now, when you break that net position on the previous slide down by fund, it's shown here on this slide. Now, the commission's general fund makes up about $900,000 of that balance, and HPA makes up about $1.1 million of that balance. Aside from that, your capital fund has about $26,000 of net position, and CTO, which last year had about a $628,000 deficit, now has about $180,000 positive net position. Now, most of that swing was caused by the PPP loans. You spent the PPP loans last year and really in 2020 and 2021. This year, your PPP loans were forgiven, and that caused a positive swing in your net position during the year. When you look at your revenues, they're shown here on this slide. You have charges for services, which is mainly made up of CTO and HPA and ticket sales. You'll see those charges for services did drop in 2021. That's really the year that COVID impacted your operations the most out of the last 3 years. But in 2022, you see those charges for services increased to about $4.7 million, pretty close to pre-pandemic levels for CTO. You also have your grant revenues here in the middle of this slide. That's made up mostly of your New Mexico and Colorado appropriations, both on the operating side and the capital side. And those grant revenues were about $2.7 million in 2022. And then off to the far right, you have any other revenues that don't fall within those two categories. Now, normally, your other revenues would be pretty small, but because of the insurance proceeds from the fire, the employee retention credits, as well as the forgiveness of the PPP loans, those all make up that other revenue in fiscal year 2022, and it's why you see such a big spike in 2022. Now, your total expenses are shown here on this slide, and again, we break your expenses down by different fund within the commission. Your general fund had expenses of about $600,000. The capital fund, which is made up mostly of capital improvements, jumped to about $4 million in fiscal year 2022. You have your train operations or CTO expenses of about $4.7 million. And when you look at the expenses of CTO, roughly 40% of those expenses are payroll related. You also have other operational expenses and administrative expenses that fall in there. But like I said, most of that is payroll and payroll related expenses. And then you have other expenses off to the far right within HPA. And those HPA expenses are right around $100,000 each year. And then lastly, when you look at the overall change in net position, you can also think of this as the net income or net loss for each year. It's shown here on this slide You see the general fund off to the far left has generated positive net position each of the last 3 years, 4 years really. You see the capital fund here in the middle of this slide. Back in 2019 and 2020 actually incurred losses. In 21 and 22, though you should expect to see pretty much break-even information for the capital fund each year, because a lot of those expenses you incur are reimbursed or covered by your appropriations. You have CTO here in the middle also, which we mentioned in the last couple of years. CTO was the most affected by the pandemic, and you did use PPP loan proceeds in the previous years to cover a lot of costs, but those PPP loan revenues weren't recorded until 2022, when those loans were actually forgiven. And that's why you see that swing in 2020, 21, and ultimately in 22. And then off to the far right, you see HPA. And because ticket revenues were down so much in 2021, you saw the drop in HPA revenues and ultimately net position in 2021. But really, each of the other 3 years, you've seen positive net position within HPA. And that increased about 157,000 in 2022. So that was really everything we wanted to present as it relates to the fiscal year 2022 audit. Obviously, if there's any questions from the commission, I'd be happy to go through them with you now. But if you have questions after today's presentation and want to discuss anything, you can call me on my office or cell phone, or shoot me an email, and I'd be happy to go through any questions with you. So thanks again for having me.
Questions?
No, just thank him. That was a good presentation.
Were you able to hear that, Josh?
What's that?
Were you able to hear Commissioner Graybell? He just thanked you for the presentation. He said it was good information.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, Josh. Thanks, Misty. Have a good day.
All right, thank you.
Can I get a motion to discuss approval, disapproval of resolution 2023-005, a resolution to accept the audit report for the CTSRR financial records for fiscal year 2021-2022.
Motion to discuss.
Second.
No, it makes sense to me. My only comment is going to be that Licia is making the necessary changes to address the couple things that were noted in the audit. So
One of the things that we've already corrected, and that was the bus contract. The bus contract was, had some issues, and the new bus contract has been negotiated, signed, and taken care of. And it takes care of the one finding.
and my other comment, after working with a variety of organizations, this is really complicated. The finance end of things is almost mind-bogglingly complicated, because there's multiple streams of revenue coming in from our guests, and then 2 different states, plus grants, and now federal money, and oh my gosh, it's not easy to keep that all sorted. So thank you, Alicia, and your team very much.
One of you needs to say second.
Second.
Oh, I thought we did.
Second.
Okay,
Both of
then,
you just- both of you
second.
Sit there looking at me.
Now can we discuss it? Yeah.
Any other discussion?
No.
Can I get a motion to approve resolution 2023-005, a resolution to accept the audit report for the C and TSRR financial records for fiscal year 2021, 2022.
So moved.
Second.
I'll second.
Can I get a roll call, please? Number 3?
Commissioner Cassford,
Yes.
Commissioner Albrock,
Yes.
Commissioner Gibbs,
Yes.
Commissioner Graybell.
Yes.
Motion passes. Approve. Can I get a motion to discuss the approval, disapproval of Resolution 2023-006, a resolution to approve the CTSRR Commission Policies and Procedures Manual Version 8.0.
Motion to discuss?
Second.
Somebody needs to second.
He did.
Second.
He's asking.
Oh, okay. Well, that's where we got screwed up last time.
Yeah.
That's what I said. You both just sat there and looked at me.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We have a second and a third.
Yeah.
There you go. More
We can get a
seconds than you
fourth if
need
we
to
want,
get.
but
Do we have any discussion on this?
Maybe just Scott briefly commenting on,
so we took the version 7 manual, and over the past year and a half, a number of things had changed within the purchasing and procurement parts of that. And so Kim, in her previous role as chief of staff, went through it and updated those things in the manual and brought it all together into one place. And then reformatted it so that it is more legible to go through as a user manual, because it documents everything from the original compact, the sales agreement, and how we conduct business as a independent commission, and so that's all been put together in one place. And so, thank you, Kim, in your role as chief of staff for putting that in hours of trying to wrestle with the format.
It was a challenge, I'm not going to lie. But I think we've got a really good solid document now, so.
Any other questions, comments?
no,
Can I get a motion to approve Resolution 2023-006, a resolution to approve the Cumbres and Toltec Scenic Railroad Commission Policies and Procedure Manual Version 8.0?
so moved.
I'll second.
Just have to be quicker.
Can I get a roll call, please?
Commissioner Graybell,
Yes.
Commissioner Smith Cassford, so I get back in the good graces.
Yes.
Commissioner Gibbs,
Yes.
Commissioner Albrock.
Yes. Motion passes. Can I get a motion to discuss approval, disapproval of Resolution 2023-007, a resolution to adopt FY24 budgets?
Motion to discuss?
I'll
Second.
second.
Oh, gosh
You
darn.
got us trained now.
We need a buzzer.
All in favor?
Aye.
Alicia, Misty, Ed, myself, trying to remember who else was in the work to build this and restructure where we are. And we put together, I've got several copies of the budget summary here, and we forwarded the budget structure to everybody for review earlier. So, unless you have questions or comments about the changes we made, we tried simplifying it. We've modified things so that we actually have cost account managers for different parts of the budget. And we've got things broken down so we can track expenditures much more closely in the capital arena on specific items, like a particular locomotive, and be able to track those effectively as we go forward. And then we can address the depreciation schedules going in out out years. And it really does begin the building blocks of a true asset management program, which has been one of our goals.
Any other questions, comments?
No, just nicely done.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank Alicia and Misty.
Can I get a motion to approve resolution 2023-007, a resolution to adopt FY '24 budgets?
So moved.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Graybill,
Yes.
Commissioner Smith Castleberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Gibbs,
Yes.
Commissioner Elbrock.
Yes. Motion passes.
There's copies of the summaries up here.
Can I get a motion to discuss approval or disapproval of resolution 2023-008, a resolution to approve a contract with Burt and Company CPAs LLC for bookkeeping services?
Motion to discuss.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yes, it
Fourth time's the charm.
worked. What can you tell us about this?
This is a contract for Misty's services along with some of her staff to assist Alicia with the operation of the financial department, and ensure that we are in a position to spend the ARPA money and meet all the federal financial rules that came with that money as we go forward. We had to do some things to ensure we were compliant with the federal cost accounting standards, not just the two states. And so we had to do some things to make that happen. And now we have a bunch of overhead to track it.
Questions, comments? Can I get a motion to approve resolution 2023-008, a resolution to approve a contract with Burt and Company CPAs LLC for bookkeeping services?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Commissioner Graybill,
Yes.
Commissioner Smith Castleberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Gibbs,
Yes.
Commissioner Elbrock.
Yes. Motion passes. Can I get a motion to approve or disapprove a lease agreement for electric vehicle charging station by and between Cordova Contracting and Development LLC and the CTSRR Commission?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So we have requested funding from both states to install electric vehicle charging stations in Antonito and Chama. This particular one is a lease agreement between the commission and the company that is handling the electric vehicle charging stations for the state of New Mexico. And it would provide a two-vehicle level 3 charging station on commission property for rapid charging of electric vehicles in Chama. The location is currently siting behind the old DIAP station, gas station, along the road that is owned by the commission that parallels the track and runs from where we normally park buses down to the depot. And so it would be up there right almost behind your place for people to come plug their electric vehicles in. And so they are going to look for something to do while they're charging their car. This is a level 3 station. It is a bit challenging for Nora to come up with the amount of power necessary to rapid charge electric vehicles, but that is an issue to be worked out between Cordova and Nora. we're providing the space.
How many units?
Two.
Maintenance and security and all that stuff.
They take care of it.
Are they, and they'll be able to get to Chama unlike other service companies?
They claim they will, and they claim that the state has them funded. This will install it.
Any liability to the commission?
They are providing a certificate of coverage back to us.
So,
Good questions.
Given the power bill structure that comes from NORA, I'm not sure that people will fill up their electric vehicle for a lot less than they would if it was a gas vehicle down with gasoline. It's likely to be rather pricey.
On a level 3 charging station, how long does it take to charge?
It's the most rapid that's
Yeah, but I
normally
mean,
put.
assuming a vehicle comes in, having driven from Santa Fe, so you assume it probably has about a third used up. How long will it take to charge?
Depending on the size of the vehicle and the amount of energy they used, 45 minutes to an hour. The Colorado folks are providing level 2 stations, which will take multiple hours, which actually aligns better with somebody plugging in and going for a train ride.
Can I get a motion to approve the lease agreement for electric vehicle charging station by and between Cordova Contracting and Development LLC and CTSRR Commission?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Second.
Commissioner Graybell,
Yes.
Commissioner Smith Castford,
Yes.
Commissioner Gibbs,
Yes.
Commissioner Elbrock.
Yes. Motion passes. Can I get a motion to discuss approval or disapproval of the Rotary Club of Chama Valley's request to plant a tree on commission property?
Motion to discuss?
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Do we have a representative from the Rotary?
Should I talk here?
Yes.
So the Rotary of Chama Valley, along with several merchants, are working on our third annual Christmas, Chama Christmas in the Mountains event. And we're slowly progressing to grow this event larger and larger every year. This year we're extending our hours. We're asking for 3 road closures with the village, but we've already discussed with them to add a large tent for vendors and to include civic groups and a charity event that we're working on as well. And part of that, we would like to be able to extend the event from one end of the historic district to the other and have different events happening throughout that area so people will stroll and walk throughout all of the restaurants and all of the vendors and visit all the merchants. And so we identified a location at the beginning of the historic district as being owned by the railroad to be able to plant our tree that would grow with the event over the years that could be the location for the Chama Christmas tree for the annual lighting. And along with that, we've got our Christmas caroling. We're changing our event from a 2-hour event from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. So it's a full day event. We meet monthly. So we are a very active group working on this year round. 2 months ago, we reached out to the train and we invited a representative to join our small group. This last week, Abigail joined us as part of our core meeting group. And we're discussing our marketing, our advertising, our infrastructure, how we'll be funding the event and the charity event as well. So the ability to be able to put the tree at the beginning of the historic district and then add the additional things as the live nativity, our craft fairs, our civic groups throughout the entire town would really help benefit the event. for us to be able to grow it. So we're working on slow growth every year to make this a bigger and better event for not just our locals, but also for our locals to find crafters in the area, not leaving the area for Christmas activities. And we're getting some really good feedback from the locals and from the different areas that are looking for a Christmas event in the mountains of New Mexico.
Questions?
Who will own the tree?
That's really open for discussion. We're looking at a donation from somebody that has a tree that will be donating it. It would be on your land, so it would be your tree. We're really open for that. We're really just trying to grow the event. We wanted to be able to put up a couple of plaques, one for the donation of the family that's donating the tree and planting it for us, one for the Rotary for the upkeep, because they'll be maintaining that tree, and then one from the train, from the commission from Toltec, so we can, again, identify that you're letting us use that property every year for the event.
So the Rotary Club will be responsible for maintaining it?
Yes, we've already actually spoke to someone that is a gardener of like twice annually, checking the health of the tree, feeding it, monthly watering, as again, we meet monthly, so we'll be able to keep up with that as well. I know Kim and I spoke previously about what happens if the tree should die, that kind of thing. I got together with a couple of my group mates, I guess, discussing that possibly we can look at a bid to remove the tree should the tree die, and what that would cost, and maybe the Rotary can hold those funds in an account or something to just to show on our part a good, faith that we're not going to plant a tree and abandon it.
I think that's important because I know that in prior years, Rotary had a garden in that little triangle. It was kind of a rock garden, and flowers, and Maureen Gonzalez actually was doing all the gardening, and then when she quit, it kind of fell apart and had to be leveled. So that's my concern, is that we end up having to undo again. So I need some sort of firm commitment from Rotary that they will follow up with it. It's just like the Heritage Days that put the little shack or cabin and farm equipment and assured us that it was going to be an annual event, and we now have a log cabin on the property that's become a site for drug deals and vagrants sleeping. So I think we need to be prudent and responsible in our management of our property.
That's a good question. So the site would be in that triangular piece?
Yes.
And what size tree is anticipated for the planting?
So we're requesting a tree, actually a smaller tree to begin with, about 15 to 20 feet. So it won't be a very large tree. We want it to grow with the event over the years. And we want to be able to make sure that it's not going to go through the shock of a larger tree being moved. Last year we utilized a small 10-foot cut tree, which was nice for the first time having it on the main road, but we want to make it a more permanent, lasting structure.
I greatly appreciate the efforts, and it makes sense from a community cooperation point of view as well, and we, as the railroad, grow with the community, so we help each other in this process. We just wanted to make sure that we don't have any liability issues on our side, because that's what our responsibility is. Do we see any big liability issues other than perhaps having to cut a tree down if it doesn't work out?
The tree growing so big that it starts to interfere with line of sight, because there's 2 turning points off that triangle. That would be my other concern.
I guess it would depend on where you
What triangle
plant
are
it.
you talking about?
The small triangle right across the street from in between, in front of where Jay Weimer's place was.
Oh, okay.
And I think in that case, that would be the decision of having to cut it down to start with a smaller one again.
I hope that happens. I hope it grows so big that.
Yeah,
We could put something in there where you would choose the site, so you can make that decision of where it would actually be planted, and something, we could put something in writing that if the tree grew so big it needed to be removed, we could start over. The event itself will have insurance, because we are adding a 40 by 100-foot tent for our vendors and civic groups on one of the side streets, so we are working on the insurance for the entire event right now.
so do we need to see that new language before we make a decision, or?
I think can we do it contingent on an acceptable
That's fine with
agreement?
me.
That's fine with me.
They're making plans, and I think, time is of the essence for them, so.
I would agree.
Yeah.
And I'm very supportive. I'm guessing we are very supportive, so
Yeah,
thank you.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Just a quick one. Since you're gonna light the tree, is there provision for getting power there?
There is, I believe, one power pole there, so I did talk to an electrician that has worked with the village in regards to powering it. For the night of the event, we do have 3 generators that are being donated to us, but to keep it lit throughout the winter season, we are looking at some alternative ideas.
another question?
I don't.
Can I get a motion to approve the Rotary Club of Chalmers Valley's request to plant a tree on commission property?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Patience. Patience, folks. Okay. Was there any language to approve?
Oh, that's true. We need to state that contingent upon,
Presentation of an acceptable agreement. That,
Yes.
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah.
Now, you ready for a vote, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir, thank you very much.
Commissioner Graybill,
Yes.
Commissioner Smith Gaspard,
yes.
Commissioner Scott Gibbs,
Yes.
Commissioner Elbrock.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you.
Good.
Thank
Thank
you very
you.
much.
Thank you very much.
Thank
You
you,
bet.
Amanda. Appreciate it.
Hope it works out fantastic.
Yeah, anything we can do to get more people into town is fantastic, so thanks.
There's
We'll
3
be
dead
reaching
trees
out to
on there
everyone.
too, by the way.
Yeah.
I saw that when I came by.
Okay.
I don't know who planted them, but somebody did. Do we have any old business? We're ready to go into executive session for personnel matters?
Yes.
I'm ready.
I'm ready.
Can I get,
Motion?
motion to go into executive session?
I move that we go into executive session pursuant to the commission's policies and practices manual adopted March 29th, 2012 regarding limited personnel matters, strategy preliminary to attorney-client privilege pertaining to threatening or pending litigation in which the public is or may be a participant, discussion of the purchase, acquisition, or disposal of real property, water rights by the public body.
Second. Can I get a roll call, please?
Commissioner Graybill,
Yes.
Commissioner Smith Gaspard,
Yes.
Commissioner Gibbs,
Yes.
Commissioner Elbrock.
Yes, we will go into executive session at 10:53.
Got it. Your office is open.
Yeah.
Can I get a roll call to go back into regular session?
Commissioner Graybill,
Yes.
Commissioner Smith Gaspard,
Yes.
Commissioner Gibbs,
Yes.
Commissioner Elbrock.
Yes, let the record reflect that we are back in regular session at 11:55. No decisions were made in closed session. We do have an announcement to make. It's sad to make this announcement, but it's the situation we've been put in by our governor, and I will turn it over to Scott.
So, when Mark called me back in May 2 years ago, and let me know that Eric was leaving. And I started this job in June of 2021. I told everybody that when I turned 70 in April of 2024, I was going to retire for the third time. After the February commission meeting, we had worked out a plan where I would step down in November, and I would have gotten us through the 2023 operating season, gotten the 2022-23 audit completed, and have the path forward for selling tickets for the 2024 season underway. And those were some stepping stones to hand this off to a new person. However, recently the New Mexico governor stepped into this, and I think driven by some letters that came out of Chama. And she's given the commission a deadline, starting with this meeting, for us to select a new general manager who is not also a commissioner. Her problem is that I am dual-hatted as running the railroad as well as a commissioner. I debated long and hard, as Anna can attest, to did I step down as being a commissioner or did I step down as president? And as I looked forward, I think I can have a much longer and larger influence on the direction of this place in assuring it has a path forward, remaining as one of the two Colorado commissioners. I have enjoyed my tenure as president for the last 2 years, and I think my greatest satisfaction out of this has been building the management team that we now have in place. We have a number of young people who are in a position to help this place continue for a very long time. And watching them grow and helping them grow and mentoring them to keep this rolling museum a viable attraction and an economic engine for this region. So we will begin a search for a new general manager immediately. We'll do a national search, and we'll engage some of the employees in that search process as part of a search team to help narrow down the applicants.
And we hate to see Mr. Gibbs go as president. He's done a fantastic job. We had an excellent working relationship with the community, the employees, the rail fans. But it is what it is.
When's the drop dead date?
We have about 90 days.
Okay.
And
Round of applause for Scott for his job.
And this is a tough thing, because I've had the pleasure of working with Scott for several years now, and he really has done an amazing job. And Scott let the team members know yesterday, the managers know that this was coming, and the looks on their faces told us a lot. So you have done such a fantastic job bringing the team together, developing the staff, the expertise, the confidence. I'm just amazed, and I think when you look and see all the successes of the last year, and those are especially evident in this last off season, all the work that got done. If you compare the number of locomotives we had at opening day last year at this time versus this year at this time, that's just one of the key metrics that we look at, but you did fantastic, and what you have built will last.
I hope so. We've had our challenges with the recovery from COVID, the Osier fire, and some personnel issues, but we've gotten through those, and I think we're on a good path now.
We are.
And I too just want to express my thanks for being able to serve as your chief of staff. I would have followed Scott out in November anyway, because the symbiotic relationship between a president and chief of staff is pretty personal. And Scott and I had a very unique and amazing working relationship. It's something that has been a highlight of my career. And I had to step down as chief of staff. I could not have a paid position and serve as a commissioner as well. So this is all serendipitous, I guess, at this point in time, but thank you, Scott, for all that you did. I really enjoyed working with you, and now I get to work with you at this level, so it's gonna be an interesting change.
Thank you for being my sounding board and the person that would take my goofy ideas and turn them into actual written text that made sense.
I learned when you said, "We need to," that meant, Kim, do it.
But something that has been evident for a while for me, and it was especially evident yesterday, is the management and the team that we have has the confidence, they have the expertise, they have the knowledge to continue. So, yes. Thank you, Scott.
Well, thank you for the opportunity.
Just finishing up some paperwork here.
I had fewer things to sign when I closed on my house.
I know. That's all the attachments.
Yeah.
The railroad is bigger than the house.
It is. It certainly is. We looked at them very closely before.
Yeah, they got copies.
We've been through all of these things before we even sat here.
But you will notice that my semi-signature turns into a scribble as
The more you sign, the more it just kind of.
Billy wanted my money.
He's paying me off. I've been nice to him today.
For paying you off.
I've been nice to him today.
Oh, okay. I thought that he was buying. You don't think he's nice for free? You're talking about Elbrook.
Especially to Roger.
I don't think Roger comes cheap. And then Duke's got me all screwed up. I can't pick on him anymore. That ruined my day. So do
There's additional pages on that one.
Yeah, there's.
Oh, there's more than one.
There has to be 3 copies.
Oh, okay. You have to hand it back.
all of these.
No, that's,
Thank God. I was going to go have a stamp made.
that was the budget question that you were asking about. That's what was submitted to, and I just want an original copy of the resolution, because that one you guys emailed back and forth me.
There are a few copies of the budget summary that will get up on the website, but anybody that wants a copy, here it is. Okay, I think we got that one done too.
Paperwork's almost as big as Mark's house.
It is.
We could light off the locomotive with the paperwork.
And run it up the hill.
Okay, do we have anything else?
No.
I would like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second,
I'll second.
all in favor?
I
12:06, we're out of here. Thank you, everybody.
yeah, thank you.
Who'd I do?